We automatically lower the volume because we're about to start very shortly. My name is Jeppe Mikkel Jensen. I am a part of the Energy Poverty Advisory Hub team that has established this together with DG Energy. We are very pleased with this conference here because sometimes we refer to the Energy Poverty Advisory Hub as a multi-level governance elevator. And here you are really seeing that this elevator is going today. It's going to go up and down with messages and different stories and hopefully a lot of new connections made. I think we had a closed session this morning with cities receiving support, and already there a lot of connections were made with colleagues also from the Commission and the implementers. Without further ado, we are already a bit late, and we have a lot of people that have a lot to say. So I would like to start with our distinguished guests. That will start with the welcoming remarks, and we will begin with Director General Ditte Juul Jørgensen from DG Energy, that we of course are working very closely with on a daily basis, and this will be followed by MEP Ignacio Corao. I apologize, I don't butcher Ditte's name because I'm a fellow Dane, but I apologize if this happens several times today. At the same time, Christian Silvio Bushoy will also join us, but it is an incredibly busy time in the Parliament right now, so he might be sitting there pushing the buttons. But after he has pushed his buttons, he will be joining us. And this will be followed with the director, also in DG Energy, Paula Pino, for the Just Transition, Consumer and Energy Efficiency and Innovation, which is also a bit above our umbrella. And after this, we will then slowly lower the elevator and see more into the actions on the ground that EPA is here to push forward. But that's it from my side, and I would like Ditte to unmute her microphone.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm really glad to hear that you've had an interesting and an enlightening day so far, and I hope the rest of the day will prove the same. The energy sector, energy policy is full of activities every day, all the time, night and day, all over Europe, at local level, at European level. There's also risks involved in the energy sector, and just this morning we saw a terrible accident happening in Italy in a hydropower facility. So I would like to open my remarks by sharing my sympathy and condolences with the families of the victims of this accident, with Italy, and with everyone working in a sector that is so important for all of us, for our societies, for us individually in our homes. So I think important to think of everyone out there wherever they are, and it links in well. It links in well in a very sad way, but nonetheless is a reflection of the fact that the energy sector is an active sector all over Europe, and so I think important to think of the families and of the people involved there. It's a great honor to meet all of you. It is always really good to listen to and engage with local levels, with activists, with stakeholders, with those of you who are trying to do some of the things we are trying to do as well in DG Energy to improve energy policy, to make our energy transition more just, more fair, to make sure that we lower the level, that we reduce, minimize, end energy poverty in Europe as part of our energy transition. So the work you do out there, wherever you're from, is really important, and it's a necessary part of our common effort for a better energy policy, for access to energy, access to affordable energy, access to clean energy, and access to secure energy across the European Union. So really a great opportunity. Now, we've been working a lot on energy poverty over the last many years. We had seen a decrease in the levels of energy poverty across the European Union. But unfortunately, we have been going through a significant energy crisis in the European Union and in neighboring countries, very much linked to the Russian invasion into Ukraine and to the fact that Russia has been weaponizing energy, and that has really both triggered but also significantly strengthened the energy crisis. And for the European Union, we managed to stay energy secure. It was a lot of work, a lot of common efforts between the European Parliament, colleagues in the Parliament, colleagues in member states, the national governments, local levels, all of the things to keep the lights on and to keep energy, gas, to heat our homes. So the crisis, the way it was felt among European citizens and European businesses, was really more on the price and on the costs. And that has, of course, had an impact also on energy poverty. We have seen the levels of energy poverty in the European Union increase again. So we were on a really nice downward trend. We could see we had really made a dent in energy poverty in the European Union. We had good instruments, good approaches, thanks to your work. But we can see it has been going the wrong way, again, because of the energy crisis. So we have stayed warm, we have kept the lights on, but we have also seen price increases, and that has impacted energy poverty. And of course, the crisis that we saw, the price crisis, was at its peak in 2022, and that's where consumers really started feeling the higher prices. It continued on the consumer bills in 2023, so with a significant impact. And the crisis, we're in a much, much better situation. Prices are essentially back to pre-war levels, but we're not completely out of the woods, because if you look at the geopolitics, the overall situation, then there are risks out there. So in that context, also in that context, it's really important that we continue our work on the transition, because the energy transition to cleaner energy will also bring lower cost energy and more secure energy, but also that we do that transition in a way that helps us eradicate energy poverty and that helps secure that the transition is really just and fair for all Europeans, wherever they are in Europe. So what I would like to say a bit about is what are some of the legislative measures we have taken, the Commission has proposed, and the two co-legislators have adopted over the last few years to strengthen our efforts to lower the level of energy poverty across the European Union. And I guess the good news is a lot has been done. So we actually have now a very, very good legislative framework for the action that is needed. And what we need to do now is to implement it, to make it happen. And a lot of that is at local levels. And so, again, really important to have this conversation and to look at how do we best follow up together. What can we do together? We had a legislative package under the European Green Deal, looking at how do we achieve the reduction in our greenhouse gas emission of 55% by 2030 that has been agreed. And this requires work on renewable energy, energy efficiency, electricity market, gas markets. And then we have, in addition to that, Repower EU, which was a response to the crisis, the COVID crisis, a response to the war, further raising the ambition for the energy transition, again, with a view to providing lower cost, cleaner and more secure energy. So some of the points that have been covered in that I will go through now. In addition to that new legislative framework, we have clarified what can and should be done on energy poverty through a recommendation from the Commission that we sent out in October last year, and that I hope will be helpful in taking action and strengthening our work against energy poverty. One of the things we've done in that recommendation is to set out clear indicators, because energy poverty is a term that may be understood differently depending on where you're placed. What is the overall context? What do we mean? And so giving clarity on what are the indicators that we can use to measure accurately energy poverty has really been an important part of this recommendation. It will give us access to more clear, comparable data, and therefore give us a much better picture of what are the risks, what are the levels, and how is this developing, how do we best address the barriers, and what are the measures. So the recommendation, of course, also points to measures that can be taken, structural measures or more ad hoc measures, in order to address and limit energy poverty. And then together with that, we have given ourselves across the European Union all these legislative tools that can help address energy poverty. One of the really important aspects of energy poverty is energy savings and energy efficiency. The more efficient you can be, the less energy you will need, and the less energy you will have to pay for. So energy efficiency really makes sense, and that's the reason we have a principle of energy efficiency first in our energy policy. So we have revised the Energy Efficiency Directive. It was agreed before the end of last year, thanks to work with the European Parliament and Council. Specifically on energy efficiency, the energy performance of buildings, of course, is particularly important for energy poverty for citizens. And so we have also upgraded our legal framework for energy performance of buildings, setting out milestones that can help address poverty, give priority to doing that, and establish solutions that can help address energy poverty. So we have a common European definition of energy poverty, and that really recognizes the problem and, again, makes it easier to address it. You need to identify the problem before you can find the solution. So a really important basis for our further work. Some of the legislative, some of the new rules that have been agreed and that will enter into force soon requires member states not just to act against energy poverty, but really to give that priority, to prioritize the energy poor and to prioritize those citizens that live in social housing, where there might be a need for investments, but where that is very, very difficult for the individual. It also requires member states to adopt a policy mix to avoid having any negative impact on vulnerable citizens or energy poor. And then, as I said, the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive ensures that there is support given to vulnerable households, and it puts more emphasis on buildings that will need renovation, and often those things come together. So a strong framework there. We have also worked to establish a principle of a one-stop shop for citizens so that it's easier for citizens to access the information they need, to know where to go, to make sure they get clear information rather than a whole book that it's difficult to read through and translate into action. We want to make sure that in this one-stop shop approach, citizens have access to good advice that can be trusted, both on technical and financial issues, but also, of course, as much as possible, advice that is adapted to the specific needs of the citizens in question, and give guidance, clear guidance that can be used on what can be a fairly complex journey to arrive at more energy efficient buildings. So really an important aspect. So those are the two energy efficiency pieces of legislation that have been revised. In addition to that, we carried out a revision of the electricity market design, which is really important for consumers as well. The overall objective was to try to decouple the link to the very high and volatile natural gas prices, essentially, that we have seen. They have helped drive up electricity prices dramatically during the energy crisis. And so we need to cut that link and to a larger extent make it possible for consumers to choose a price mechanism, a contract, that will keep them free of that volatility of fossil markets. An important aspect in the electricity market design, in addition to these choices of consumers for what energy, can they get green energy, what's the pricing arrangements, another important aspect is the introduction of a ban of disconnection for vulnerable consumers and for the energy poor. This was not easy to bring through. We had very, very late night, early morning discussions, but we did arrive at a good agreement on that, and I think in a very important principle, in particular for vulnerable consumers. In addition to that, the new electricity market design facilitates energy sharing schemes, so another great opportunity for consumers, especially if you live in an urban area, if you don't have the capacity or the financing to install photovoltaic where you live, well, you can benefit from what others do through energy communities and energy sharing. So really another important creation in the electricity market design, and something that can help us secure a just and fair energy transition, a socially cohesive transition. So that's in the electricity market design. Then we have also a new legislative framework for the decarbonization of gas and gas markets, and that introduces also clearer ways to protect consumers. Same for the Renewable Energy Directive that removes some of the barriers that were in place for consumers, making, again, easier for consumers to access green energy. So a lot is in that legislative framework, and now it really is about delivering. We have the premises in place to deliver, to make this happen, but to make it happen, we need to work a lot at local level. And so, again, really an important conversation we have today because of the key role that local authorities, that you can play in helping make it happen and benefit consumers, and most notably consumers that are either in energy poverty or at risk of energy poverty. So in that work, we look forward to continuing to work with you. And then, of course, we have the Energy Poverty Advisory Hub that has been in place for the last few years, really working directly to support citizens and to help support local actions that can tackle energy poverty across the European Union by making the guidance that is needed available and by making sure that the guidance, again, is clear. The Hub will also continue to strengthen its cooperation with our Covenant of Mayors. The EU Covenant of Mayors is the biggest Covenant of Mayors assembly, the biggest initiative in the world, and so really a driver of what is a global movement of local authorities and cities, and one that I think we as Europeans can be proud of, that we're leading that local work as well. I think it says a lot about the strength of European governance, not just at European level or at national level, but also very much at local level, at the level of cities closer to citizens. I know that there have been really interesting and nice stories and examples shared earlier today. You also mentioned the conversations. I know some of the municipalities have taken excellent concrete measures, and I'm not going to be able to go through all of them, but just a couple of examples that I thought were interesting. We know that energy poverty has been addressed in Poland, in Nipolomice, by leveraging energy communities, so a really good example there. There are other interesting examples in Romania, in Alba Iulia, where there has been a one-stop shop that can help provide consultancy on energy efficiency and solutions against poverty. And I know that Malmö in Sweden has been developing a diagnosis of energy poverty, specifically in urban areas, where the challenges are different from rural areas typically. So again, just a few examples, but interesting examples, and I hope that these days will give even more examples and best practices that can be emulated and spread across the European Union, because that's part of the reason for coming together and sharing what we do. So I hope everyone will take inspiration from this. And I'm sure that if we work together, if we design the right policies and measures, if we continue to strengthen and work within a good governance system, we really can address the challenges, and we can make sure that everyone in Europe, all citizens, wherever they are in Europe, will benefit from a clean and just energy transition. So we look forward to hearing from you. We look forward to hearing about the work you do. And then we'll be reflecting together with Paula, Alejandro, and the entire team in DG Energy who work on this, looking at what are the best possible ways to follow up. How do we translate your recommendations, your work, your best practices into action and into results to help make Europe climate neutral, but again, doing that in a just and fair manner. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Edith. It's always nice when sort of when I think the top of the supportive umbrella of the Energy Poverty Advisory Hub is sort of showing the recognition of the efforts. I'm sure that Alejandro can give you a lot of examples from this morning also. What many of you also know that it's the Commission, obviously, that we are working closely with in the Energy Poverty Advisory Hub. But as a matter of fact, the Energy Poverty Advisory Hub and the whole sort of birth of this was pushed by the European Parliament, and that's also one of the very good reasons for us to have inputs and sort of introductory remarks by some of the prominent members and prominent drivers of why we're sitting here today, as a matter of fact. So Mr. Corrao, feel free to take the floor and give a bit more of our context.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Is it working?
No.
Yeah, now yes, I think. Okay. Well, thank you very much. Thank you to Energy Poverty Advisory Hub for organizing this event, for the invitation. Let me also start by expressing my deep condolences to the families of the victim of the incident that happened in Italy, which was a big tragedy, and we are kind of shocked. We were actually going, both with Mr. Busoi, going to participate to an event organized by the company this evening that was cancelled because of what happened. So again, also on my part, condolences to the family, and it's very sad. It was very sad news. as our Director General for Energy was saying, we've been working during these years on many pieces of legislation which included from different point of views the matter you are talking today, so energy poverty. And for example, we're going to vote in a couple of hours about the gas package. I'm going to finish the part today, but I was the shadow rapporteur for my group on the gas directive, and it's been two and more years working and debating and trying to find a common ground between different groups, between different institutions, between different sensitiveness and cultures. And today we should come to an end on the gas package just in a couple of hours. And for that, I would like to apologize if I have to leave in advance, and I won't be able to follow all the debate, because this theme is really truly interesting. What I would like to focus a little in this intervention is one of those pieces of legislation that was mentioned by our Director General, which is the EPBD, so the efficiency, the energy performance of buildings directive, which the rapporteur was Kiran Kufe, which is a fellow member of the European Parliament from the same group. We've been. I was trying to help him during this long path on some communicative problems that actually came especially from my country, from Italy, where I know that some of you are Italians here. And there was not the same debate everywhere in Europe. For example, Kieran is from Ireland, and he was always telling me, oh, what's the problem with this directive in Italy? Because I'm receiving lots of messages and lots of comments from Italy about this directive. And the thing was that in the political debate, in the Italian political debate, this directive was taken very seriously, but not because of what was in the directive, but because of the on a broader, let's say, political debate against the idea of using renovation, on using this kind of legislation. And probably we needed to do more efforts to try and explain that this was about tackling energy poverty both on private sector, private buildings, but also public buildings, and for example, schools, hospitals, and other public offices, where indeed we have problems, and which are maybe not related with bills and energy poverty, but are related with the health and the everyday life of European citizens who are, living in cold places when it's cold, and hot places when it's hot outside. So this was very important. It's very important to explain first to the citizens what we're working about, which is not always so easy. At least this is what I can say in my experience. There are around 54 million people, or 11% of the European Union population, affected by energy poverty. And this number has been increasing since the beginning of the energy crisis. And rising rents and house prices made also this problem worse, because it goes together with the two things together became an explosive mix for the life of European citizens. 7 out of every 10 buildings in Europe are considered energy inefficient, and they leak energy out of badly insulated windows, doors, walls and roofs. People and organizations in Europe, households, business and public service are spending millions every month on energy that goes to waste without those kind of intervention. And of course, this situation cannot be allowed to continue, and we needed to intervene. So on the different institutions. The causes of this crisis are deep-rooted, and over many years we failed to improve our housing stocks, of course with the differences from country to country, and we become over-reliant on fossil fuels. We repeatedly failed to provide the necessary incentives and the support needed to truly encourage renovation. In the absence of action, households have been left at the mercy of extreme heat waves, cold snaps, and cost of living crisis, as I was saying. So we believe that this revision of the energy performance of building directive will bring down energy bills and tackle energy poverty, while creating hundreds of thousands of good quality local jobs and bringing down emissions. Social safeguards and financing measures will protect those who cannot afford renovation or rent increases. Renters will specifically benefit from the EPBD because they often pay energy bills but have no influence over the energy performance of their homes. The EPBD ensures renovation and provides support to owners while protecting tenants against arbitrary rent increases or evictions. Some of the social protection, which is I think the most important part of the legislation in this event, included by the European Parliament in the directive to protect vulnerable and low-income households, were rent support or rent caps, prioritization for renovation grants, support to pay energy performance certificates and building renovation passports, prioritization for schemes that replace fossil fuel-based heating and cooling system in homes, rollout of thousands of one-stop shops that will provide free and impartial information and advice on renovating and access financing, feedback loop to ensure that citizens have their say on what social protection will ensure accessible, convenient, and affordable renovation solution. By prioritizing the worst performing buildings and ensuring that social protection and financial measures are adopted, we will make sure that everyone benefits from energy efficient and comfortable homes. The directive also directs money to renovation by establishing a clear financial framework, ensuring that citizens do not have to shoulder the financial cost of renovation alone. As I was saying, I could not stay for the whole time of the meeting, but I am very curious to hear from you, from the different stakeholders involved in this field, from different countries, their approaches, recommendations, and insight, especially from local communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Corral. I think your apology is accepted, so please go and vote in good favor for the vulnerable on the gas package. Speaking of voting, as for the moment, MEP Bouchoy is not yet available, so I would ask Paula Pino to provide us a bit of insight on the recommendations that also Dieter was referring to, Director General, apologies, was referring to in the introduction. And where also, I know that a lot of the inspirations that have come out of EPA's activities and activities on the ground, I know has been a part of the discussions for building these recommendations. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, and for
as Director General Dieter Juhl-Jorgensen already pointed to some of the examples at your level, at local level, that have been and are a source of inspiration. And it's also our function and role to share best practice, because at the end of the day we are all sharing the same type of challenges. So it's a great opportunity to bring you all together here and look at such practices that have been put into place during very, very difficult times. And indeed, as you said, we're very pleased that a lot of the input that inspired the recommendation on energy poverty adopted last year has indeed come from this forum, from the discussion, from your experience there, and we really tried to take it up, to reflect it. And you may wonder why another recommendation, because there had been already a recommendation on energy poverty. But precisely because there had been so much work in the meantime, also both on the legislative front, as our Director General mentioned, but also as a result of the experience in managing the energy crisis, that we saw that there's really a need to update the energy poverty recommendation. And we do hope that it will be a good basis also, both at national level, but also at local level, to serve as a guidance in terms of issues that can be tackled more easily, independently of all the legislation that is in place. And therefore, I'd like to ask the contribution of my colleagues to pass some slides to help us here catch some of the key facts and figures. And one is clearly the worrying fact, and it's been mentioned by MEP Corrao, that we are now facing 54 million energy poor people in the EU, which is huge. And I have another figure for a very concrete indicator. So within those energy poor, if you take one indicator which help us defining what is and what constitutes energy poor, which is the ability or inability to keep the place where we live warm, there we come to the conclusion that in 2023 there were 9.3% of the EU population was not able to keep its dwelling adequately warm, and this represents a 35% increase compared to 2021. So it really shows how the energy crisis affected the population in terms of this indicator in particular. And what is more, of course, this affected those who were already more vulnerable already. So you can see that also within this share, it's mainly among the low-income groups that this share increased. And we are now still receiving. I was very insistent with colleagues in the team to have the very, very latest data, because obviously the energy crisis only started to produce impacts later on, is still producing such impacts, even though fortunately we can say that we are now coming out of the energy crisis. But in terms of the real impact on the bills and on the possibility for citizens to deal with it, it's mainly last year and unfortunately still this year that we will see the impact. And we will have the member states data and at also both at member state level and aggregated for the EU for 2023 by mid-June this year, published by Eurostat. That's when we will have the latest figures to reflect the situation in terms of the energy poverty and also in terms of the various indicators that constitute the definition of energy poverty. Now, if we go now into the recommendation, as I said before, the idea was to complement, to update the previous existing recommendation, which had been published in 2020. And it was really meant at helping member states and all the relevant stakeholders also at local level to have a full picture of all the legislative framework and the energy policy reforms that have been adopted in the past 1.5 year. It sets also what are the priorities, what are the good practices to tackle energy poverty, and points at what are more structural measures that can be put into place, notably in terms of access to energy efficiency and to renewable energy. And we can continue. Now, we start with the definition of energy poverty. And there, the good news is that we really managed to do progress, because one of the big difficulties in this discussion, and I've been now in the area of energy for quite some years, and I remember every time we would bring up the issue of energy poverty, we would be told, yes, but there's no harmonized definition. So each country is defining it differently. So in the end, we cannot have a discussion at EU level on energy poverty because we're comparing apples with pears. Now, the good news is that now finally we do have a definition of energy poverty which is enshrined in the legislation, in this case in the Energy Efficiency Directive, which is now really part of the EU legislation, and which puts forward also a number of indicators that constitute this definition. So this is good news. So we now have across the EU one common definition that needs to be transposed into the various member states, and the date for final transposition of the Energy Efficiency Directive is in October 2025. But the more we can already use that definition, the better. It's also cross-referenced in the meantime in other pieces of legislation that have been adopted over the past year. And hence we are now in a position to do a proper diagnosis, and do a diagnosis which is comparable among the member states in the EU, and that's really the point of departure to then be able to also tackle it. And speaking of tackling energy poverty, of course, it is up to member states in its different configuration at national level, but then with the help clearly also of the local level. And as you know, even though the concept of energy poverty appeared already in previous legislation, and now we're having a clear definition, but the concept was already there. For instance, in the very first, not very first, actually it was already a redoing, but in 2009 in the Electricity and the Gas Directive there was this concept of energy poverty, which was calling on the member states to develop national action plans or other appropriate measures to tackle energy poverty. And we see now that many years later, we do have several member states which actually have strategies on energy poverty in place. Now, more recently, in the Electricity Directive of 2019 and in the regulation on governance, again, member states were asked to diagnose the number of energy poor in their territory, and if there was a significant number of energy poor, to also identify policies and measures to address energy poverty through their national energy and climate plans. And here, as you know, the draft energy and climate plans, the second round, has been put forward by member states already. The Commission issued recommendations, and I invite you to check, to consult these recommendations by the European Commission on the draft national energy and climate plans, because energy poverty and what member states have or have not foreseen on energy poverty is really important. We put it very much at the core of our recommendations, so you will see that there is still work to be done on the side of member states on how to tackle energy poverty, even in their national energy and climate plans, and from there, what are the measures that can be put into place to effectively address it. Now, Dieter already mentioned the main pieces of legislation which have been adopted recently and which are tackling energy poverty, and which clearly show that energy poverty is really at the center of what we're trying to to solve, that it's a main concern, and therefore you can find relevant provisions in different pieces of legislation, from the Energy Efficiency Directive, as said, for instance, with the definition, to the EPBD, and it was good that MEP Corrao elaborated on that. We hope to have the very, very final agreement, fingers crossed, in 2 days in the Council, and that would really make mean the conclusion of a difficult negotiation, a very difficult negotiation. You mentioned Italy, but we could also mention other countries where this has been very controversial and eventually affected the discussion at European level. So a lot of work in terms of putting the record straight had to go into this, because the fact is that this subject has been politicized and used and abused, and therefore we also count on you to putting the record straight with your different constituencies, and hoping that we have a very final adoption now in 2 days, after we've managed, again with a lot of effort, to adopt it in plenary in the European Parliament. Now, I would like to also mention, because this has not been mentioned before, the Social Climate Fund. The Social Climate Fund is part of the new pieces of legislation which is in place, which has been adopted. And why is it so important for energy poverty? Because precisely it foresees that the revenues that will come from the extension of the emissions trading system, the ETS, to buildings and transport will then feed back into the energy poor, and will help precisely the energy poor in, for instance, renovating the houses in which they live. So this is absolutely critical, and it means really also financing. It means really financial tools to help address the challenge of insulation of a house, for instance. So most of these have been reflected then in the recommendation. One or the other, for instance, the market design directive was adopted even later, so it's not totally yet taken up in the recommendation, but the main principles are there. We were pleased to see that, for instance, in the electricity market design, the consumer rights and protection to make sure everybody has access to a variety of contracts, and that vulnerable consumers are protected from disconnection, are now well enshrined in the legislation, which should be enabling citizens to benefit also from access to renewable power energy, and to share notably the energy they produce when they live, for instance, in a house with solar panels, that there is really also the possibility to share that energy. So good progress there. On the gas reform that has also been mentioned here, there also we have new consumer protection provisions which mirror the protection provisions that we had already in the electricity area, and that was the concern from the beginning, that we do have, to the extent that it is comparable, that we have the same type of rights for consumers, both in the electricity and in the gas field. Now, let me just then go into in more in-depth into the content of the recommendation. And first and foremost is implement what we have on the table. We have a lot on the table, as has been said. So the very first and critical aspect is we need to implement what we have now adopted. There's a lot, and there we really count on you, because that's very much where our work stops, and the work of the member states, and with the support of national, of local authorities, starts. And so implementation. We cannot repeat it times enough, because in terms of what is the regulatory framework, it's pretty complete now. But now it's really making the case for it to become a reality, and not just a theory in legislation. Then it's about the structural measures. When we speak about reducing energy demand, as we had to ask everyone, households, industry, over the past 2 years to reduce, this does not mean that we should be destroying what we say. There's a distinction between demand reduction and demand destruction. We want to maintain productivity. It's not about making personal sacrifices. It's about consuming more smartly, and therefore to putting into place structural measures, be it a smart meter in our house, which will allow us to consume energy more efficiently. So it's about those measures which can be structural and which have then also long-lasting effects. It's also about the governance. And here again, you and this group play a very important role, because if we want to tackle energy poverty, we cannot believe that this will only be done with the help of some colleagues in the ministry responsible for social affairs in each member state, or in a unit responsible in the energy ministry for a just transition and energy poverty. It has to be across the board. And therefore, and we have the tools again, for instance, through the governance regulation, to encourage everyone to work together. I mentioned the national energy and climate plans. Knock at the door of your colleagues who are dealing with the national energy and climate plans if you have contributions to make from your experience in terms of the energy poverty, so that this can then be aggregated in the national energy and climate plan. So essential to work across the borders and across the departments. By the way, it's also the challenge we have in the Commission and with the institutions. So it's also a call to us to really make sure that this is mainstreamed across our work on energy and beyond. And then it's about trust, it's about engagement, it's about communication, because again, we may have the best rules, but if there's not awareness about it, then they are simply not picked up and really produce no results. So here again, all efforts that go into spreading the news about rights is extremely important. If we proceed, then we go into further elements of the recommendation. Energy efficiency, obviously, is a key one. Because it's about, for instance, and this again has been picked up in the Performance of Buildings Directive, accelerating the renovation of buildings, of existing buildings, starting, if we cannot do it for all, starting with the worst performing buildings. And we know that typically in the worst performing buildings also live those who have least means. Therefore, we also foresee the possibility precisely to help financially those with least possibilities to do so, so that we really bring the building stock in the EU up at least 2 or 3 levels in terms of insulation, in terms of energy consumption of the building, and because there's really a huge potential to be seized across all member states. No member state is spared in this regard. Some have less to do than others, but everyone can still do pretty much. Then in terms of the access to the renewable energy sources, one key aspect is energy sharing that I mentioned before, and that was introduced in the electricity market reform, and which should allow notably vulnerable consumers and energy poor to access more renewable energy sources when it's fully implemented. Not to be underestimated, and we don't necessarily always immediately think of it, but it's really the skills, because we also need to ensure that people in the administrations at the various levels do have also the training to identify, to work with energy-poor households. This has also been shown during the crisis. One of the difficulties was precisely to target energy-poor. And sometimes even with the best of wills, we receive feedback from the member states saying, we're willing to put into place mechanisms and subsidies and support, but it's very difficult to identify the energy poor. We also want to believe and are confident that precisely with the definition of energy poverty, this will also help precisely identifying who are those who really need it, and so that we can target those who most need. And finally, and there's nothing that can be done in the energy transition without the appropriate financing, and it relates also to the point I just mentioned. It's really targeted schemes for households affected by energy poverty, so targeted schemes targeting energy poor, and this is also taken up in the recommendation. With this, I hope that you will read it. It's interesting reading, and by the way, not just the recommendation, but I learned a lot from the colleagues who prepared it on the document which is accompanying the recommendation, which has a lot of explanations, of examples from all of the countries you're representing, and it's really very informative in terms of the situation overall and what can be done about it. So thank you very much for this invitation. Thank you. I needed it.
Thank you very much, Director Pinu. I really invite also MEP Corrao to also follow what's going on in the Energy Poverty Advisory Hub. Also, because as was mentioned, here is a room full of implementers, and we heard how challenging, and I'm sure that the next speaker may also confirm that these negotiations can be at international and national level. What is interesting is that when we go to the local level, very often politics become much more pragmatic because we need to have our cities to work. So I think there's a lot of good sort of also inspiration that can trickle up in the political system on how to make things work. However, before we start sort of entering into the local level, I'm very pleased that Mr. Bouchard managed to join us here today, also from the European Parliament and chair of the ITRE committee. We have already gotten a few insights from a colleague, but I would like you to take the floor and provide a bit more sort of inspiration and inputs on the work that you are doing from the Parliament just across the lake here.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm very honored to be here today, and please excuse me for disturbing a little bit the agenda, as we had some changes in the plenary agenda, and I had also to chair an event about industry and the Romanian perspective of the next industry deal, where energy, of course, will play a very important role, as we need more energy, we need a lot more electricity in order to achieve our goals in 2030 and 2050, and energy will remain one of the core domains, and clearly we need to do more in order to support our energy systems. Also, I would like to thank, because we are at the end of the mandate for the good cooperation between European Parliament and ITRE Committee, Industry, Research and Energy Committee, and DGNR. I directly expressed my sincere thanks and appreciation to Commissioner Kadri Simpson, to Director General Mrs. Jorgensen, and to the whole colleagues from DGNR for the very good cooperation during very difficult times. We needed to pass important legislation in order to achieve our 2030 target, Fit for 55. We worked under very difficult circumstances during COVID, during pandemics, but we managed not to stop any moment and to continue to legislate and to work together in close cooperation. Then, of course, it was the crisis of high energy prices, which is very much linked with energy poverty, because this also had an impact on those categories and regions where the energy poverty is more present. And we managed mobilizing together to have a very good strategy, Repower EU, to take the necessary measures, give the European Commission the necessary support, even those which were not necessary debated in the Parliament. And it was not a very happy situation for us, as we like as Parliament to be involved in the decisions, but we understood the urgency and we supported the European Commission. And then, of course, the challenges after the invasion, illegal invasion of Ukraine by Russia. And here the cooperation was very good with gas storages, with REPowerEU once again, with the updated and increased targets in energy efficiency directive, renewable energy directive, and we'll finalize this cycle even these days. Tomorrow we'll vote on gas and hydrogen, the outcome of the trilogues, also Net Zero Industry Act step, also extremely relevant for you. But coming back to this issue that you are debating today, first of all, thank you for inviting me, and thank you for the debate organized by the Energy Poverty Advisory Hub. This hub was, I know, launched by the Commission in 2021 at the request of European Parliament, and builds on the EU Energy Poverty Observatory project. This project was also very much supported by ITRE Committee and by European Parliament. So another concrete example of the good cooperation that we had in the past, and I'm sure it will be even strengthened in the future. For the Parliament and for the ITRE Committee, the energy poverty has been a subject close to the heart of many of my colleagues. I will not go into details about the discussion, how to define, how to measure, how to combat it, extremely important. But I'm sure that having the input from the regions and the cities, I understand this will follow, and it will be interesting to see. It's a good inspiration how to bring that combat to another level in an efficient manner. The energy supply crisis linked to Russia's war on Ukraine, along with high energy prices, now they are calm, but they are still high if we compare with the United States, our main strategic ally, or I'm not talking about Asia or other countries, brought EU consumers an energy price crisis, forcing consumers to pay more for fuel, heating, and electricity. Many member states took some measures to help the citizens, to help the small and medium enterprises, to help the hospitals, schools, but still some difficulties remained. Unprecedented measures to alleviate the effects of such crisis on households, with a particular emphasis of vulnerable consumers and those facing energy poverty, were taken. Some of them were proved efficient, successful, some other less, but clearly it was important that authorities gave this support. Besides the concrete support, subsidies, mitigating the increase of the prices, I believe a long-term solution will be to invest and increase energy efficiency, because we can tackle the problem of energy poverty by giving the necessary financial support and the necessary incentives in order to boost energy efficiency. And of course, energy efficiency is also a very important pillar of the REPowerEU, contributing also to the decarbonization and the Green Deal targets, and also to our security of supply. As we'll be more efficient, we'll import less energy. Unfortunately, we are dependent on imports, and even will phase out fastly the imports from Russia. I know that we did already a lot on protecting vulnerable consumers, but we need to do more in the next mandate. And not only as legislation, but also recommendation and sharing good practices and supporting mainly European Commission, but with the political support of European Parliament, the national and regional and local authorities to implement the right measures, even giving them part of the investments that they need in order to protect vulnerable consumers. And I will finish by saying that what we did during the crisis, which was, of course, a wake-up call for many of the national authorities, but also for European institutions, we proved to be resilient, we proved to work in solidarity, we proved to take rapidly the necessary measures, and it was also thanks to European Commission, to the leadership of President von der Leyen, Commissioner Kadri Simpson, and the whole team in European Commission. But clearly, we need to do more in the future and to be better prepared. The situation is still unstable. I hosted 2 events in European Parliament looking to some forecasts, one study coming from United States, but on the global, with a global vision. Another one, the Richtad study, looking a little bit to the outlook in the next years and the different scenarios to reach our goals. So we still can experience problems in the future, and we need to be a little bit proactive and see how we can and when we can take some measures in order to be better prepared. And as this mandate was a lot about regulation, about legislative proposals, about amending, adopting legislative proposals, I understand that the next mandate of Commission and Parliament will be on implementation, but not only. Of course, we still need to revise some legislation. We need still to build new legislation for some sectors, but we need also to implement a lot on what we did and to find the necessary solutions to finance, to build the necessary investment programs. And with this also, I think we can address efficiently the energy poverty too. This component should be extremely relevant for what we'll do in the future, for the implementation, for the new legislation, and for the investment programs that we need to create in order to remain competitive worldwide and to achieve our goals. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Bushoy. I think that the room in here can fully support that we have a lot to do and more should be done. But we also, as I said, have a room of implementers. So here is actually a dialogue between those who are like on a daily basis is changing the life of the most vulnerable. So this I also take note on the fact that we need to be better prepared. And I think the best way of increasing our resilience is to focus on the most vulnerable in our society and ensure that everybody is winning in our energy transition. With that, I'd like to give the floor to the colleagues I'm working closely with the Energy Poverty Advisory Hub. Initially with the colleague Livia from DG Energy. And at the same time, some 3.5 years. So it's a good time to take stock. And I like this. There was a notion this morning saying that EPA gave the possibility to stop, reflect, and take the necessary and take action based on these reflections. So I think this is a similar exercise that the Energy Poverty Advisory Hub will do based on all the inputs that have come from you here in the room, and also the many other projects that has been carried out and are ongoing in the Union. Livio, you start.
Thank you very much. So I will start the session, which is focusing on the results of the Energy Poverty Advisory Hub. Okay, so I'll start this session with a very short background introduction to the Energy Poverty Advisory Hub initiative of the Commission. The Energy Poverty Advisory Hub is an initiative put forward as a pilot project by the European Parliament and run by the European Commission as a leading initiative to support municipalities in tackling energy poverty. That's why we are honored to have here the members of the European Parliament to show them how their pilot project, their initiatives has evolved. The Energy Poverty the Energy Poverty Advisory Hub builds on the predecessor work done by Energy Poverty Observatory and move from observing and analyzing the energy poverty towards more direct and targeted actions. The main role of the Advisory Hub is to provide technical assistance to municipalities and other local actors in designing concrete measures to address energy poverty. The European Parliament pilot project was initiated with the title Covenant of Mayor as an instrument to tackle energy poverty. Therefore, I will bridge a bit these two initiatives, and I will say a word about Covenant of Mayor, which is Covenant of Mayor for Climate and Energy, brings together more than 11,000 cities which voluntarily committed to implementing EU climate and energy objectives. The Energy Advisory Hub is supporting the development of the third pillar of the Covenant of Mayor, which, a part of the pillar for mitigation and adaptation, has set up the energy poverty pillar. Covenant of Mayor community has a growing political commitment to act on energy poverty, and Energy Poverty Advisory Hub is providing the tools, examples, and expertise to fulfill the local political ambitions. Now we move to the tools we made available in the European Commission for tackling energy poverty. And as we heard in this first part of the conference about the EU legal framework, that it gives us the ground for launching these actions for to tackle energy poverty. And at the national level, there is the Coordination Group on Energy Poverty and Vulnerable Consumers, which has been established in 2022 and serves as the main platform for exchange of information and coordination between the Commission and Member States on questions related to designing and implementation of Union legislation, program and policies addressing energy poverty and vulnerable consumers. And we have this tool, Energy Poverty Advisory Hub, which you will hear in the next session more about the results and the work Energy Poverty Advisory Hub is doing. But mainly it's for identification of energy poverty, planning and implementing measures, and for providing technical assistance, training, capacity building for citizens, local communities which are engaged into taking actions to address energy poverty. So thank you very much for that. Was a short background about the project.
Thanks a lot, Livia. I'll give the floor initially to Dora, which I'm sure the great majority of this room know already. We'll also introduce the extended team as FAS.
Thank you very much. When I thought how to start this session, I actually was working on complexity, and I came across the Ashby's law that says that in order to properly address the diversity of problems that the world throws at us, we need to have a repertoire of responses which are at least as nuanced as the problems you face. And I thought how much our team is perfect for this, to respecting this law, because I have the pleasure to work with colleagues from different fields, and now soon we will hear more from Ter. We work with Marta Garcia from Spain, that normally more addressed for the practitioner and local actions. Joao Gouveia, that is from Nova University of Lisbon, and it's more addressing the research aspect. And Marina Varvesi from Italy, that it's normally looking and overseeing the capacity building and skills part. As just mentioned, we build on different pieces, and we would like now to enter into more detail in the impact we achieved in the past years working together. So I leave my colleague to go on.
Thank you, Dora. One of the instruments of the Energy Poverty Advisory Hub was to, or has been to, provide support to municipalities, to local actors through technical assistance through supporting them by following their demands. So through a series of 2 calls, open calls, municipalities could request or could demand a necessity or a need in terms of tackling energy poverty. So during these years, we have received requests from, how to make an energy poverty diagnosis, or I need an energy poverty diagnosis in my municipality or in my area, because EPA provides support not only to one municipality, but it has been possible to bundle proposals and to work as a region or as an area, not only as a municipality. Apart from energy poverty diagnosis, some requests have come, for example, how to set up an energy community with the contribution or with the participation of vulnerable consumers on it, or how to develop a one-stop shop to identify hidden energy poverty, for example. Or as the example of Valencia, we have them today, they wanted a specific support, a technical assistance on how to tackle summer energy poverty. And as the last EUCRA report, the Climate Risk Assessment report, heat is the gravest risk in Europe now. So as municipalities feel this reality, and they request this contribution to EPA, and we've been working on it with the support of experts on the topic of energy poverty around Europe. So during these years, 53 projects have been developed or are still being developed, and around 267 cities impacted. No, the one before. In terms of needs, we, as EPA, we have provided this support to municipalities, but the municipalities have also reflect and share their needs and the things they need apart from the technical assistance. No? And there is a common coincidence that there is a need of a multi-level governance approach to align EU, national, and local efforts. It is important to work at 3 levels, but in a coordinated manner. Also to reinforce the network of stakeholders at all levels of governance. Energy poverty is being tackled by public sector, but also by charities, social sector, and different entities and civil organizations. So it's good to have this kind of network. Also, they have emphasized the importance of having a national strategy to guide the local level, and not all countries or all the member states have a national strategy. Also, the need of upskilling of local actors, capacity building need, and the data collection improvement. There is a lot. Everything is built through indicators, but there is sometimes difficult for municipalities to work on the existing indicators and to have updated indicators. So there is a need also to work on that. And yeah, the last, just in terms of impact, the next slide, please. Yeah, the idea of and the need of a further assistance, of further support, and to reinforce the particular expertise, and of course to share the knowledge with the community of stakeholders. This is for the part of the technical assistance. Now my colleague will continue on the training.
Hello all. Thanks, Marta. Thanks, Dara, for the introduction. So regarding the capacity building, as we heard before by the director, skills are very important, and it became clear during the COVID crisis, and this is the reason why within EPA we have delivered 3 courses addressing the different actors on energy poverty. The 3 courses are online. They are available at any time. You can register and go through them. The first one was an introductory course of about 1 hour, and the second one is a compact course of about 10 hours, and the last one, be prepared because it's about to be released. It will be coming out in the next month, and will lead you probably until the end of the year. We will be able to take the course every week, one lesson. So happy to get ready to know more about energy poverty. The courses, as mentioned, are online. We have added some interviews, some extra materials, experts, talks, so that, and obviously quiz and interactive actions, so as to make them more dynamic. So the main tool of EPA for the capacity building is mainly the training course, but to support the training, we also have some publications. Here you see the handbooks. I think there is also the inspirational projects, but there are more, and you can find the full list of the EPA publications on the EPA website. Well, the link you see there is the one that leads you to the e-learning platform. So just to sum up where we are with the training, in terms of impact, we've had some very positive feedback from all the different participants. I would just like to underline how the participants represent all countries. We have participants coming from all over Europe and also from all different type of actors. So it is a problem of the municipalities, but actually a lot of actors, mainly on the ground, are working together with the municipalities or by themselves to address the issue. And what is needed? There's still a lot to do in terms of capacity building and skills. What we heard also this morning is that we need to develop more tailored learning resources to specifically address the different knowledge gaps and needs, and also some specific mentoring or bringing hand in hand the municipalities and the different actors to actually work on the training. But indeed, I agree that skills is one of the recommendations to tackle energy poverty. And having said that, I give the floor to Joao.
Thank you. So next big activity. The next big activity we have pursued was this identification of inspirational cases of best practices across Europe. So we have conducted this review during the last years of work, and we have now over 250 projects at multiple scales. So we bringing different actors. We try to characterize them individually, connecting with the outputs, deliverables, sessions, and knowledge each individual project have carried out, from live projects, Horizon, or nationally locally funded projects. So this is a really critical piece of work, because it connects what previous speakers were mentioning also from the Commission and the Parliament of sharing knowledge. So specifically there you have a possibility of filtering options by country, by energy poverty phase, meaning diagnosis, planning or implementation, types of intervention. As Marta was saying, it can be one-stop shops, it can be energy communities, diagnosis, renovation or so, and also by geographical scale of the type of actors and stakeholders involved. It can be at the local scale, at the national level, or cross borders at the European level. Then on the next part of the work, and it's a critical, Dimitri, you can, yeah, thank you. It's around indicators. So everybody more or less touched upon this issue. It structures the base, it connects us to the definition in the different countries and regions. It's part of the support. Paulo Pinho mentioned this also and showed a couple of indicators we have been using. But in our latest research in October last year, we have provided further clarification of the energy poverty related indicators. So also contextualized indicators that can frame the problem in their different regions, in the different countries and so on, where we have also aligned with the Covenant of Mayors work. EPA, together with the Covenant of Mayors Europe and JRC, have produced guidelines for energy poverty reporting by cities and local governments. So we have organized our research looking for data at the national level, specifically coming from EU-wide data sets, so Eurostat, the SILK surveys, JRC analysis, and so on. where we organized 29 indicators through 4 main topics. So climate related, of course, we have been talking about this early today, of the summer vulnerability, winter vulnerability, there is a distinction there, about the facilities and housing, type of energy consumption, type of fuels, equipments being used, ownership of air conditioning, for example, or fireplaces. It's very distinct across Europe. Also, the type of housing. Members of the parliament mentioned this need for buildings renovation and the current situation of energy efficiency of buildings in Europe. So this is a critical part of the problem. And then we will also try to reach out to other related topics, for example, mobility related indicators, and of course, socioeconomic aspects related to energy prices, energy markets, and different types of socioeconomic conditions and vulnerabilities. So we have our online dashboard where you can look on the left. We have 29 indicators with different levels of data sets and so on. And then we have developed in the last 2 years specific analysis of each indicator to better understand what they mean, how they can be used, how they should be interpreted, practical applications with examples, and also insightful analysis of their significance. So looking ahead on indicators perspective, we want to pursue setting off the structured framework of support already on the guidelines, on the recommendation from the Commission, but pursuing that level of work, trying to bridge the gap between national level and local level, continue to bridge this gap between a major plan and local action on the ground. And then, of course, also overcoming this idea of data gaps and blind spots of analysis. So we have to have a comprehensive assessment of energy poverty at all the scales, European level, national and local. So we should be keep targeting scale, targeting different data collection types, using relevant data as the energy performance certification, for example, trying to increase the level of surveys across different nations. So all of this is important looking ahead for this part of the diagnosis, strengthening also the connection between policies and their impact, because it's with indicators we can see how policies are really being impactful. When we look with the latest data, we see that the consequence of the energy crisis, the consequence of the war in Ukraine. So we need to have updated, regularly regionalized indicators that can follow up with this work. And then ultimately, of course, this also needs to be shared with the community under the Energy Poverty Advisory Hub activities, as shown also today, but in previous events. So we have had already 3 major events. The last one was in Warsaw in the end of 2023 with over 330 participants from all levels. So not only the local governments, the scientific community, policymakers, different types of experts and NGOs and so on. So this is an impactful work we have been conducting. Of course, because national level and local level is really important to pursue and to connect and to create this build up this level of knowledge in different areas. We have been developing a lot of national events, not only with the core EPA team in our countries, but also with the antennas that combine our extended team, let's say. And then ultimately, something we kind of created during the process together with DG Energy, this idea of the lunch talks, like trying to deal with hot topics that are relevant at that time. Maybe it can be disconnections, maybe it can be indicators, maybe it can be some guidelines or summer energy poverty or energy efficiency renovation. So we have been conducting this for the last year and a half, if I'm not mistaken. Ultimately trying to get together and build up this community of practitioners, of researchers, of politicians at different scales to work together to mitigate and target energy poverty. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have been a very interesting inputs, and we're a little bit long on time, but if someone has a question, we would like to give the floor for a couple of questions. Otherwise, all tired, and we can go for the quick break.
Yeah, I think it's time to stop, reflect with a cup of coffee in our hands, and we'll be back here in 10 minutes for more moving forward. I'm missing out on a bell here, but just for you to say that it would be great if you could take your seat again. So I hope that you all got refueled. The final session of the day is actually the sort of the most comprehensive one, and due to the groundwork that's been done, a large piece of groundwork that's been done in advance. But I think, Dora, you will present a little bit more about this groundwork and introduce the speakers from across the Union.
Perfect. Thank you. As you've seen, normally when we are entering in the EPA team, we are faster to compact the time. We will try to do the same, but also to involve more the discussion. We would like to just give you a quick introduction of what was the activity we performed in different member states and different countries, and from which we collected the input that we're going to present in this session. One of the mandate of the Energy Poverty Advisory Hub is really to act and facilitate the communication from the local governments to the Commission and then the Parliament. As these days, it's a concrete example. So what we organized almost yearly is to ask our reference antennas and partners in the countries to organize an event to collect inputs from all the local governments in the country. And the local governments are asked to focus and discuss about 3 key points. One are the challenges they're facing. One are the solutions they implemented to address these challenges. And the third point is what they would like to see reflected in the policy framework in order to facilitate their work. Today with me, I have a representative of 9 different countries to give us the chance to discuss more what arose from these discussions. And but to focus more the idea, we decided to give you a glimpse of what are the key points that jointly emerged from all the different countries. As you can see, there are elements that are recurrent. They were particularly mentioned also today from all the different persons intervened, and they are of course reflected from the local level. But what is different is the perception of this wording that we are using and exactly what we are talking about. Moreover, Their word is common words repeating, but when we started discussing more with the different local authorities, they meant that in a country, collaboration, it's addressed more by one aspect, one in another, it's slightly different. And this is why here with me there are the colleagues, and we try to be as much as engaging as possible. So we will address at this point with some key questions. And then for each of these points, we will open to questions from the audience if you have more to ask. I would like to start first with the first keywords, that is collaboration. Find the right way to collaborate among different stakeholders can significantly influence the effectiveness of sustainability of actions. We have here João Gouveia for Portugal, where they have been working quite a lot on engaging different actors at the local level. How do they collaborate, and what can be improved in this type of collaboration?
Thank you, Dora. Hello again. So, yeah, in Portugal for the last, I would say, 5 to 6 years, a lot of different agents and stakeholders have tried to engage on energy poverty mitigation. And what, from the learnings, I'm also coming from a university, so the kind of the learnings of sharing knowledge and working together in different types of projects with different type of people, backgrounds is really relevant because, as we have also been discussing in different forums, it's the integration of best practices, scientific knowledge, supporting local action, identifying vulnerable consumers and vulnerable citizens, and this cannot be made alone by a national government or even a municipality. This needs to integrate different level of agency and different topics of knowledge. And this is, I think, Portugal can, if this pursues well, maybe in 2 to 3 years, can be one of the best examples of energy poverty action in Europe, in my perception. Because we are now one of the few countries with an energy poverty strategy. Members of the government and different public entities are working on an action plan that was mentioned on the strategy, building up a national observatory, integrating, hopefully, all stakeholders, relevant stakeholders to engage on the best practice and so on. And then we are seeing really good examples of on-the-ground projects addressing energy poverty in the multiple fronts. On diagnosis, we have 5 technical assistants in Portugal showing this diversity of things. So mobile one-stop shops supporting vulnerable consumers. We have renewable energy communities integrating vulnerable consumers. We have today here with us the president of that civil parish in Portugal. We have been diagnosing and trying to follow up and monitor household problems, humidity, temperature, characteristics of the housing with different types of agents. So this connection between national planning, on-the-ground action is real critical. Throughout EP activities, we are trying to follow that, but specifically in Portugal, we are being successful showcasing that connection between universities, NGOs, public authorities at different levels and different topics, connecting different relevant topics.
Thank you. When we talk about collaboration, it's not only from different realities, civil society organization, research of municipality, but often we realize that it's also municipality trying to help each other and sharing a burden and also the success story. This is particularly underlined by Greece and the capacity of municipality to bundle together. So I introduce Korovesi Alice to speak for Greece.
Okay, thank you, Dora. Yes, this is true. The collaboration should be number one priority when we are talking about energy poverty mitigation, and it can be a multi-level collaboration. It can be at local level, it can be at regional level, it can be at country level, depending always on what the basis is and what are the needs of each municipality and each neighborhood, let's say, municipality. Since the first technical assistance, that was the first one that was addressing the energy poverty status and diagnosis in the municipality of Ameloki-Menemeni in the region of Central Macedonia. One of the things that we promoted as technical experts is to discuss with neighborhood municipalities and find out common ways to address this issue and to support citizens. The neighborhood municipality of Pavlos Melas, not a beneficiary of the technical assistance, but a beneficiary of another project to establish energy community, they came together, they exchange ideas, and they are trying to find out, based on the national framework for energy communities, on how they can work collaboratively in order to establish a community and support the citizens. On the other hand, I can say that we have different collaboration models, and this is something that arose after the event that we organized prior to this meeting here. We had 48 municipalities that attending a 2-hour meeting. It was organized by INZEB with the collaboration of the other expert, Sofia Natalia Boemi. And what we find out is that municipalities are eager to follow successful examples that are happening in our country. For example, the municipality of Heraklion in the island of Crete, they took the initiative to have energy advisors, and they were supporting small businesses, supporting households in their behavioral change in terms of energy. We know from the meeting, and we are following this activity, that more than 20 municipalities are looking forward how the municipality did that and how they can support the other municipalities with their know-how, which is good. On the other hand, the mayor of Athens, who was actually the scientific project manager of the Power Pool project, one of the most successful energy poverty projects that were funded under the Horizon 2020. He's now the mayor of Athens. He's building an energy poverty alleviation office, which is good because we are exploding what we have promised during the project. He mobilized neighborhood municipalities, so they have built, they announced 2 weeks ago, 1 month ago, an energy let's say, a coalition, Athens and neighborhood municipalities, to address the phenomenon commonly. So there are tools, there is willingness, collaboration is there, and the good thing is that municipalities are now more aware about this issue of energy poverty, and even though they cannot directly be in the households, we do not have social housing in Greece, it's individual properties. On the other hand, municipalities have understood that the health and well-being of citizens is something that reflects also to the health and well-being of the municipality as a total. So we have good signs in Greece, and we hope that we will be very good examples in collaboration in the coming years.
Thank you very much. So we have seen collaboration among different realities, collaboration among cities, but collaboration is also across border. And by direct experience, we have as a leading country of proposals submitted and project implemented Spain. So we thought that it was great to address Spain to understand how they not only work at national level, but then they expand their knowledge across the border and to other countries in Europe.
Hi, Dora. Thank you very much. Yes, as you say, Spain has been one of the most popular presenting proposals to the projects, and that's why we start to work in energy poverty in the past, in 2006, with Intelligent Energy Europe projects. We start to learn from UK and from France about how they make a definition of energy poverty and how to implement it, solutions and identify the vulnerability people in several areas, and mainly in identify how to put indicators and how to identify. That was very interesting in that moment. That has run a lot of time since then, and nowadays we can say as a country and with other partners and European countries, we are applying to Horizon 2020 projects and life projects, and nowadays it has been done more than 25 projects in all Europe related with energy poverty. So that helps us all together to collaborate and give example one to the others. And now Spain has been able to create their first to be the first member states to have a national strategy about energy poverty, which is a good example to share with the other countries. And this document was for 2019-2023 period, and is a good starting point for all countries to have an actions plan to elaborate. And I think it's good to share with all other countries to all the learning from this document. And now we are trying to evaluate all together. This is what we did in our national event for EPA, and to ask our partners in the country as Valencia how they manage and if they help this document. And we realized that they did help. This document is a point of start to implement as a local and regional level, but still a lot of work to do, of course. But it's always a point to start. Thank you.
Thank you very much. On the same topic of collaboration across border, I would like to know from Italy what it came out on how it can be done more to guarantee that good solutions are replicated all over Europe, and how we can promote even more this sharing reality.
Okay, thanks, Sarah. And a lot more we can do. And a lot is being done. And we heard this morning also, once again, the director speaking about the importance of implementation. And indeed, thanks to transnational European projects, the implementation is possible. As Christina said, this is done also with the LIFE projects, which I guess you all know have a topic on energy poverty, which is also linked very much to the work of EPA. And so thinking of the experience of the work of the technical assistants, of what came out from our national event in Italy, of what is our experience on the transnational LIFE projects, I would say that it is extremely important to know that energy poverty has a very local dimension, so it might be that some actions are very specific to that local context. And in that case, it is important to know how the context influences the actions, so it might not be that those actions can be replicated. But on the other hand, we know that there are some needs, some general gaps that are more or less present in all countries. I will not use the word skills, but that's one of the examples. And the need to address the people in energy poverty. So, and there are some very good examples of both technical assistances, LIFE projects, and other different initiatives that actually address these common issues. So I would say thinking, okay, of the local dimension, but it is possible to somehow replicate the projects also on a more wider experience. And in terms of work collaboration, there is a lot to learn from each other. So I would say that examples like these meetings where we can share experiences and each learn from each other are what is really needed. So, yep.
And on this idea to share experience, before moving to the next point, I look at the audience if there is some specific questions you have for the representative of the countries, or if you want to add on the matter of collaboration or some additional message about it. No one? So we move on. So to the next point. So another point that came out again also in the morning, it's about the multidimensional aspect of energy poverty and how it is a complex to develop a solution that fits all. When we talk about multidimensional, we can already see the different perspectives per country. Mediterranean country as Spain underline how it is important to take into consideration summer energy poverty. I will ask Cristina Ramos from EcoSurveys to tell us a little bit more how this specific topic can be underlined in future policies.
More discomfort in summer than in winter in the Mediterranean countries is a shared problem we have. So that's real. We have to really make policies about this urgent problem, because it's going to be the heat is a climate risk for health for all our countries. So as a local governments, they need support at all levels, financial, technical and legal support to make policies for this big problem that we have been working a lot in the winter energy poverty, but the summer energy poverty is now a big deal and is a real problem and already here. And at the same time, we really need some recommendations as well, very fixed in this topic, because it's not the same as in the winter. We don't really are going to just pay for air conditionings to vulnerable people, because it doesn't have sense really for the energy efficiency. So we have to give more directions and recommendations about this problem. And for example, some solutions that they are local governments are giving is the climate shelters. But for climate shelters, it's not the same make a climate shelter in a big city as Barcelona as make it in a rural area. So it has to have sense altogether. And we really need to give recommendations and learn from other countries and share this knowledge to make practical policies and really take to action. Thank you.
When we are talking about different environmental conditions, there are a situation for which it's not only a difference between countries, Mediterranean or Central Eastern Europe countries, but there are specific countries that have differences even inside their own borders. And one of these examples is Greece, as I would like Alice to tell us more about.
Yes, Dora, thank you. You are right. The differences in the climatic, actually differences in our country is something that I'm discussing many years. Even though we are a very small country, Greece has 4 climatic zones. And we have some good observations, even the last days when we have extreme heats, that in the north part of Greece, in Florina specifically, we have monitored that the temperature was minus 15 degrees. In Athens, it was something like 15, and in the island of Crete, it was 23. So in a very, very small country, we had a difference of 40 degrees the same day, the same time. In the islands, they were swimming. In the other part of Greece, in the north, they were looking for how to heat their houses in order to address the cold wave that we had. In Athens, it was okay. We are among the safe, we're among the safe citizens of this country in terms of weather, but we don't know with climate change. Saying that is that, yes, definitely we need to go and examine what is happening in each region. It's not only differences of the social, the economic, the morphology, all the differences that our country has, and I'm sure that in other countries same things apply. It's also the climate, so we cannot lay on a specific and only one definition about energy poverty in our country. Of course, we need to have a context, what energy poverty is. Of course, we have the European context at the moment, but we need to check out with the regions and the cities what are the problems, what is affecting the citizens, and identify those solutions and those actually first the problems and then the solutions to be tailored in each of the regions. For example, what we have identified now with the islands, we have 13 islands under 2 technical assistances, is that we need to change again the whole scope of how we did the diagnosis. We have traditional settlements. In traditional settlements in Greece, you cannot intervene and you cannot do energy efficiency measures outside because you are destroying the environment and the historic places. We had to examine how close the houses were by the sea or 1 kilometer from the sea or 3 kilometers by the sea, because the salt is somehow affecting the houses. So we had to examine totally different conditions. On the other hand, we had to examine if the islands were in an area receiving all these people coming as refugees, because we had these examples. For example, the mayor of Mytilene is here. 3 years ago, the island had 20,000 refugees, so they had totally different needs. They had to cover the electricity needs and the energy needs of these people. Now there are 3,000. Again, this is something that we need to consider, because we don't know how the waves of refugees are going to enter Greece, and then they are going to enter Europe as a whole. So it's not only about climate, it's about the socio-economic dimensions, it's about the needs of the country, it's the morphology of the country. So we need to tailor the definitions and to tailor the measures based on what the regions and the cities need and what the citizens need, if we want to discuss about a solution or a set of solutions that will really mitigate or address the phenomenon of energy poverty.
And multidimensionality, that it's actually the socio-economical aspect. And Poland, represented by Izabela Kuznier, it's another example of how they face the difficulties to pinpoint consumers. So what were the challenges and how you approached these issues in Poland?
Yes, thank you, Dora. Even in Poland, we have the variety of characteristic between East and West, but also this variety could be seen in one community, in one city. So we know that to be most effective and successful with our measures, we should tailor our actions to specific target groups. For example, different support is needed to elderly people who are living alone. This topic was also mentioned in the morning by our Hungarian friend. And these people usually are not aware of the opportunities to improve energy efficiency of their houses, their flats, and they don't know how to decrease the energy bills. Also, their flats or house are usually, let's say, half empty, because all the children grow up and moved into bigger cities. This is the main problem in the rural areas in Poland. So now we have the elderly people living in big houses, and there is no will to change it to a smaller flat with reduced energy bills because the experiences from the last century. So this is something that is inside these elderly people, and they don't want to change their own place. Another group that is affected by energy poverty is also alone mothers that are leading their households and struggling every day to provide as best as possible the quality of life for their children. We have the research in Poland that the women are more affected by energy poverty than men in our country. Also, the next target group affected the most is the households in rural areas. Some of them do not have the access to energy grid. And even if they have, even if they are aware of the energy efficiency, and even if they have PV installation, from time to time they're not allowed to use because the quality of the grid is not the best, and they are cut off from producing energy from the PVs. The last target group that I would like to mention is also the people who are renting the flats. There are a lot of people in Poland in this situation. They do not have the power and rights to implement hard measures. So the only way to reduce spills is changing habits, but on the other hand, the owner of the flats cannot see the benefits for investing in the improving energy efficiency in these flats. So we have the closed circle in here. Thank you.
And of course, having so many different vulnerable consumers to address can also affect the capacity to implement actions. This is something that came up in Ireland, and I would like Michael Doran to tell us more about how they developed the different implemented targeted outreach to be able to reach all the different vulnerables.
Okay, Dora, thank you very much. Before I answer that question, I'm going to go off-piste for about a minute. When I come back from events like this, the first thing my wife always says is, what did you learn? So this is a 4-hour session, so how do you condense that into? So I had decided earlier on this afternoon that I was going to use something that Jeppe had said earlier on, which is about that the Commission is providing a supportive network. And from what Dita was talking earlier on, I think that they are. I think that they have got a good framework, and we're all going to be talking today about implementation. But then Dora said something later on about Ashby's Law, which I had never heard of. So when I go home today, my wife says, what have you learned? I'm going to say Ashby's Law. So, Dora, thank you very much. Right, I will now get on-piste, and get back on track about vulnerable groups. There's a little bit of overlap in what I'm going to say with what Isabella has just said, because obviously a lot of these problems and solutions are the same. Within Ireland, and I have to point out, at the moment, using the way that we measure energy poverty in Ireland, we have 29% energy poverty. There was a figure put up on the screen earlier on today, and I didn't see anybody else, I think, higher than 18. We're sitting at 29 now, and there was a report came out about 2 months ago that says if we do not act by 2025, that figure will be up to 43%. We're all talking about energy transition. How can you move forward? And even at an EU level, we're still talking about 10% of people getting left behind. And it's the vulnerable people who are getting left behind. So how can we talk about an energy transition when we're leaving behind 10% of people who are the most vulnerable and who don't have the capacity or the financial or the whatever to actually get themselves out of it? There are lots of problems associated with this. For instance, I'm moving on again, I'm not going to go over what Isabella has already said, but another statistic within Dublin. I saw this a month ago. There are more empty bedrooms in the city of Dublin than there are occupied bedrooms. Okay? Have a think about that. Why? I'll get back to that in a minute. If you have the average cost of a single person's flat in Dublin is now €1,400 per month. So why are people paying so much if there's lots of spare capacity, but the spare capacity is in houses, which is what Isabella was talking about earlier on, very often owned by older people. In Ireland, the older people cannot move into retirement homes because there aren't any. So they sit in 3- and 4-bedroomed houses. The house deteriorates around them. The house is maybe 100 years old, and they're maybe in their 70s. They're not interested in putting money into the house at that stage. So as we've talked about today, all of these problems go beyond simple things. Another one, chronic health conditions. We were talking earlier on, and I find it interesting that for most countries now, the issue is to do with summer mortality, increased mortality in the summer. In Ireland, it's still very much in the winter. Another statistic which is going to make this worse, and what I'm trying to do in what I'm saying now is to encourage you all to do more than you're already doing. Because there was another thing came out on Monday of this week, which was the review of the temperatures worldwide over March. And March was the hottest March ever on record. That is the 10th month in a row that that has happened. I don't know if anybody here is into data management or data forecasting, but basically most of our climate change models are defective because they average out what was going to happen. That is not what's being delivered on the ground by climate. And when you've got the chances of 10 months, individual months in a row, being the highest ever, back from a statistic that was done in 2002 by the University of London, was 1 in a million. So does that mean we're a million times worse off than we thought we were going to be? So I'm not trying to be depressive here. What I'm trying to do is to encourage. I see lots of opportunity here, and when it gets back to implementation, that's what we have to do. Dora, thank you very much.
Totally deserved. And now it's the end of the multidimensional challenge point. And I'm rarely a person that give up. So by the end of the session, you have all the points there. One question should come up.
Hello, everybody. Actually, I have a comment in this multidimensional approach, because in Bulgaria it's particularly valid that there should be also a regional approach when researching and analyzing energy poverty. Because in Bulgaria there is a huge region which is involved in coal mines, which will face huge problems and is facing now that in the near future huge problems with poverty and energy poverty in particular. So of course there are in Bulgarian municipalities, the municipality of Stara Zagora, which is the regional municipality there, they are doing research and they're trying to locate those households and how they can help, but it still is something that should be taken into account, this regional approach, and also it should be connected with the national governments, or this multi-level governance. So they cannot act on themselves alone. So this is my remark on this.
Thank you. Nothing on? Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. Well, we fully agree on the multidimensional challenges. We have been working on the heat with the support of EPA, and we are very thankful for this from Valencia City. A bit on what Doran was saying, and it's a multidimensional challenge, but we need maybe some common target, no? So common objective. So we are really happy because now we see that the Covenant of Major allow us to have as well like fuel poverty objective and targets. We have national strategy at the Spanish level, very nice, but we are a bit wondering, I know it's not easy, but why not some target at the European level as well, no? Because we know we have emission, climate neutrality targets for 2050, but as Doran was saying, if we left 10% or more people behind, we will be happy to be climate neutral, but not all. So I was just wondering if there is some, I know it's not easy statistically to have some indicators at European level, but some input on how could we define European targets, because for us it will be of some good support, you know, to be able to say we have to comply with European target. We do that for climate neutrality. We are a mission city, but for now we don't have nothing for fuel poverty at European level.
I also have a question going back to, I think it was from Greece, this example interesting for us, how we can make to spread the examples from EPA. How can we make these examples to go through to other cities, and how we get what we learn and what we develop with EPA through other more consistent proposal to address energy poverty. As you mentioned, you applied for other financial sources. So if you can elaborate a little bit about that, how we can get the examples. We started with EPA, and also from EPA maybe, and to go further.
Yeah, actually, it's a matter of discussing with municipalities and asking them of what they are doing. As I said, there are two dimensions, or there are two approaches. The one that municipalities are taking over, like the one that I expressed, I presented the example of the Heraklion municipality, which for us is a success. And on the other hand, it's collaboration that actually is coming because municipalities are talking together and they are actually finding a way of moving forward. In Greece, we have a very advanced law on energy communities since 2018, and we have more than 1,500 energy communities. Many of them, they are energy communities that have been established by or with the contribution of municipalities because they want to find ways to minimize their costs and to support citizens, vulnerable citizens. So they are taking advantage of tools. So what our proposal is, and after the meeting that we had before of this policy conference, is that we will continue the discussion with the municipalities to find out what they are doing and to present the examples. We're not going to be a platform, but since we have this communication with municipalities for other things as well, and start spreading the results or spreading the ideas. And also, because of the slide that we had during the meeting, it is a request of your municipality to have a platform in Greece that can be a platform between municipalities, not something official, to share the good practices and examples on how to mitigate energy poverty or how they are proceeding in activities that contribute in a big or a smaller extent to energy poverty mitigation. So I think that this can be an example for other countries as well to develop a platform, not something extravaganza, but something that could really be, you know, the source of information, that this can be there, and municipalities that they have the capacity, because they have personnel, they have the knowledge to support or to adapt a smaller municipality that has a lack of time or lack of human resources, and they don't know where to start and how to implement some of the activities. I think the collaboration is a must, and this needs to be proposed by everyone and to be supported by everyone that is working in the domain of energy poverty mitigation.
Thank you. I don't know if anyone from the Commission wanted to comment on the question about the indicators that was arriving before moving on.
I'm happy to take that one. I think this is a very pertinent reflection, and I would put it in the broader context of how we are organizing our energy policy. Okay, so our energy policy is, since a few years, organized in such a way that we have this governance regulation where we try to have a comprehensive look at all the different aspects of energy policy. And by means of this governance policy, we ask countries to have, as you know very well, national energy and climate plans. And these national energy and climate plans are multidimensional. And in some of these dimensions, pillars, there are objectives. And for energy poverty in particular, and I was kind of checking with Liviu and with Veronique on the spot, we have a path there. So I think your point makes sense. I wouldn't say that we need to update or not, but I think that it goes in the direction that we had in mind when we had devised the governance regulation, by the way, which we are now kind of looking into. So yeah, that's my take. So that at least the spirit of having a path towards somewhere is there at the European level, and it is not done in isolation, which was the problem of energy policy before, but looking all the dimensions of the energy in together. So voila, I hope I answered that. I tried at least.
Thanks a lot.
I'll just comment two things here. The previous question and then this new one. The previous one, I think there is the need for this interconnection, future interconnection between the EU Energy Poverty Coordination Group at the national level, bringing insights from local on-the-ground projects. And then the next steps, and while we see countries, member states building on their national observatories, also that. So it's a kind of an integration between the coordination group, the ongoing and future national energy poverty observatories, but more practical examples, kind of what Alice was saying, not the structural formalities, but bringing, like these discussions, bringing on-the-ground action and different examples. And then related to the European objectives, of course, I'm not part of the Commission, so it's my opinion. Energy poverty has the same challenges of climate change adaptation, which is very different from climate change mitigation. So mitigation, you have emissions, X%, you have integration of renewable energy, you have decrease of consumption or so on, objective. That's also what the Covenant of Mayors kind of pursues. Then when we look into adaptation and energy poverty is more difficult because of the on-the-ground effects and on-the-ground action, also of climate change adaptation. So I see them as pretty similar, closer to one another than to climate change mitigation. So it's a challenge everybody has to work on and try to assess. Thank you.
If I just can make a quick answer. Sorry. Yeah, I fully agree. I was more considering a political objective. I was working before on water issues. And if you look at the Water Framework Directive, we were aiming, when I was young, at the good status for water bodies. And it's a theoretical concept, good status. So why not aiming for this kind of concept in fuel poverty, which is not the scientific indicators, but fuel poverty free, something like this. And we know it's a long way to work, but I think it's useful as a political objective at some point. But we can talk about it later. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm Chris Mone from Belgium, the Flanders region, in fact, the Association of Municipalities and Cities. All the 300 municipalities of our region are a member of our association. We have also started with this lookalike of the European initiative, so probably the inspiration came from that side, on technical assistance hub, on activities on energy, communities, etc. So we're now building this the next 3 years, and we have a specific goal, and that taps into the remark of can we make binding targets. I think the binding target has been set locally, which is a good thing, I believe, to have tailor-made solutions. So we will try to aim at double the amount of people in the risk of energy poverty in our projects for the Flanders region. Just to give an example of how a general target can be translated, built on a local situation, which is a good thing. On the other hand, I think these are great general conclusions, and thank you for that. We have also tapped into the local conclusions on the 25th of March on the local table, where we were in the debate with our national and other colleagues. And it would make maybe today a bit more specific if these were underlined or also added with specific cases that tap into these, and I will take just two, the need for funding and the deep energy renovation. There are some very good examples made possible by the Flanders region, for example, on bullet loans, 50,000 euros for the most vulnerable house owners. There are very interesting schemes on leasing on energy efficient appliances. I know it may be too much of a detail to give every European example, but to really strategically pick a few of them and then apply this to these barriers and make sure to ask for what are the root causes, or what do we need, also European, national, regional and locally, to scale them. Because we see a lot of pilots, but we don't see enough scaling. And then, of course, we come back to the first question of the sir in the back there for me. What can European policy frameworks do? I believe it's making sure that the right thing to do is also the most logical, meaning a tax shift, meaning that we take some investments, social energy, social climate investments off balance for governments who are now currently under some sort of restriction, not locals, but Flanders and Belgium, and we will need all levels. Make sure that national governments, DSOs, TSOs, do the risk assessments of 2050-proof investments and infrastructure, so we don't get stuck with stranded assets that happen to be in the hands also of local municipalities. In Flanders region, DSO is 100% owned by local municipalities. So it would be good that the pressure is there and also the incentive is there to make sure that the infrastructure follows the 2050 targets. Otherwise, we will overshoot it. And then make sure that finance institutions like the EIB provide, or ELENA programs provide the necessary incentives to scale those programs. But first, maybe look into the nice examples also to make these very specific and very good key conclusions more speaking. That's from the practical, local level view or point of interest. Thank you for that.
Thank you very much. You made our life much easier because actually Belgium was meant to be addressed in funding and renovation. So you already touched on it. And very good input even for us to eventually consider to develop more these bullet points in something structured with the example of all the countries. And now to Hungary.
Thank you. I'm the deputy mayor of the district of Budapest. Those who were here in the morning met me already. I would like to come back to actually to two of my points from this morning, but in a different framework. One point to multidimensional challenges and another to about political instability. So talking about targeting social groups and what kind of social groups I was mentioning the elderly, the senior citizens. I was mentioning the Roma, but actually, if we talk about multidimensional challenges, we could also talk about intersectionality, because actually, people about 80% of people about 75, at least in Hungary, are women, and again, among the Roma, who are vulnerable in general, but the most vulnerable households are single-parent households, Roma or non-Roma poor, and 90% of single-parent households are women with their children. So, we should also, or we may at least combine those dimensions to target even more efficiently. So that was my first point as a feminist. The second point about political instability that I mentioned already. So it's simply not possible to implement effective or efficient policies in a context like ours, at least. So you never know how the rules will change from one day to another. So the issue of the rule of law and the authoritarian regime that we have is indeed directly connected to this issue also. The project that I mentioned in the morning, we had a very important city development plan, green social housing project, low emission and so on. And the government just decided yesterday to confiscate actually the whole area, 10 buildings, and to take them to build there an elite university instead of green social housing. So it's sort of hard to do our work in this context. But anyway, so that's the conclusion, which is not a surprise. We need direct funding. So don't give those funds to the government. Give them to not to me, to the municipalities in general. Thank you very much.
Seems the last point triggered a lot of attention. And, well, you put together indicators, the instability of the political system and the needs for fundings. It's also important to notice that it was difficult to pinpoint some elements because they are also interconnected among themselves. But on the political instability, I saw Bulgaria started nodding. So if you want to add something or we move on the other point.
Thank you. Actually, our case is the opposite to Hungary. Thanks God we don't have authoritarian government. Thanks God. Not yet. Well, I don't want to sound pessimistic, but what we have is constant elections, fifth on a row now for 4 years, less than 4 years, which is on one hand it's good, because no authoritarian person can take power and do what is done in Hungary. But on the other hand, it's also not that good for the municipalities and for local authorities, because they have to act within their limits, which are limited, especially in terms of legislation. They are limited within their authority. And also in terms of funding, because usually in Bulgaria the funding is a national scheme. Funding, it's needed. I will connect the two things, need for funding and political instability, because funding is done on a national level. Also legislation is done on a national level. Bulgaria is very, very delayed with legislation. We have a definition for energy poverty from the end of last year. But now what is needed to be done is work on the ground to appoint a body which is responsible for dealing with implementation of the legislation, also harmonization with EU legislation, with Bulgarian laws and legislative framework, and also creating a register of energy poor people. There should be a body. There is no body which is responsible for this. We don't know who will be responsible for this, to research energy poverty, to locate energy poor households, to make a register, then to maintain this register, and then to implement measures, different kind of measures towards these vulnerable groups. So we have the definition, which is very good. We start moving into the legislation, harmonization with the EU legislation, but still we lack practical body, practical structure, which will be dealing with this. And it's related to political instability, because when there are elections, when people and parties, political parties, they are very much involved in this, campaigns and everything around elections, and then we are delaying all the rest, basically. So political instability is a very crucial factor for the municipalities. They act on their own. I can say that there are examples. For instance, Gabrovo, they initiated one-stop shop for energy poor. They also initiated a renewable energy community involving citizens, vulnerable citizens. There is also the example of Sofia, Dobrich, Plovdiv. There are examples of municipalities that work on their own. But still, it's good to have this multi-level, let's say, cooperation and governance, because they cannot act alone in this. So I just added to the Hungarian example, authoritarian is bad, but also too many elections is not good too.
We have all the spectrum. I don't. Oh. Okay. First. Oh, sorry, Ellen.
No, I just wanted to. Okay. Concern. Just want to mention that it's as and your team, but in cooperation with our colleagues who are working in the context of the Recovery Fund, we are following closely these developments in particular. We have been informed and we have been in a dialogue with the relevant Bulgarian authorities and ministries for the definition of energy poverty, the primary and secondary legislation. But of course, I mean, if you have also examples from the grounds and possibly also positive developments that you want to put at our attention, we are always happy to learn more. But this is under the attention of all the relevant teams in the Commission, because it's also included in the recovery plan of Bulgaria. So from that perspective, at least, if not broader perspectives, we are following closely these developments.
thank you very much. It's very reassuring for us, I mean, for local authorities in Bulgaria, that you keep close eye on that.
I don't know the order, Croatia and then Belgium, I think.
Okay, so hello, Ana Maria Majdanić from Croatia. I will just address few things that was mentioned here. First, a need for funding. I think that we are one of the countries that actually has a map 387 buildings, multi-apartment buildings that will get 100% subsidy for the renovation. And one of our project, Rehabita Life, is we are helping those citizens because in the end, if you giving those money to those citizens, they still need to sign in renovation and they don't trust government. So even if you are giving 100%, it doesn't mean that everybody will jump on the train and say, yes, renovate my house. Second thing is that on the municipality level, Jeppe will like to hear that city of Križevci that we visit, they on the wings of the PowerPool and NPOR project that we did a survey on their municipality level, they decide to open first like a public call for renovation only for energy poor households. So this is on the municipality level. And the criteria and its problem, how to create criteria for how to give those money, they actually use not only the social criteria, they actually put how much households has per member of household money, per household money. Because we have hidden tenancies, so we have multi-apartment families living in one household, and this is the NPOR project that was mapping, like you need to know how many members you have per household. And in the end, the problem was that we did the survey, but because of the GDPR, we always do it anonymously. And we don't know, again, when the public call is open, we cannot know which households have, we cannot connect data that we have with households that we know that could apply to these public calls. And not only public calls on municipality level, it's a problem for the public calls on the government level. Because I think that Southeast Europe has problem with property issue. Like we don't know who owns the household, who owns the house, because we don't, it's sometimes in 3 generations before the house still owns the grandparents that are, let's say, dead or living in the USA or Canada. So we have problem that we map with the surveys households that have clean papers and everything, but because GDPR, we don't know when the public call is open, we don't know who knocked on the door and said, like, you can apply to the public call. And we have all one-stop shops. We are helping those citizens, but it's the problem in the end because those people are not know when the public call is open. They don't know, they don't open a TV because they have only 30 minutes that they put up TV on because they save electricity. So how they can know when the public call is open when they have only 30 minutes TV So this is something that we are having issue. We have great pilot programs, great pilot projects. Some of them are opening, like City of Križevci, because of PowerPool and NPOR, but still we have problems with when we have done the survey, we have data, we don't know connect to data again with the citizens. We need the name and the surname when we need to do public subsidies. Thank you.
I am Tom van Dikke from the Belgian government. I work for the Ministry of Economics. I would like to come back on the political instability. In Belgium, we have a quite difficult situation where we have the regional levels and the federal level who have different competences. And they each go their own way, basically, when it comes to policy. Usually, I think there's a big will between the administrations to work together, but it all ends up with political decisions. And then we go back to the long-term vision of politicians. We've got elections coming up this June, and we don't really know what's going to happen after the election. We are currently, I think, the record holder of the longest formation of governments in Europe. We might break it this year. I'm not sure. We will see. But that means that when a government has been formed, there's not that many years to go anymore to really imply policy. And I think it's very important for politicians, and this is my personal view, not the view of the government itself, to have a long-term view and not just think about the next election. This is what is happening every time again. We think about the next election. We don't have a long-term view of how to tackle energy poverty or any policy anyway. I think we should think more about how to push politicians to have a long-term view. Yeah.
Thank you to everyone. As always in life, you make a script and then it goes. But before moving to the closing remarks, there is one country that we noticed it's missed. So we will use it as maybe some additional points, additional perspective, and it's Germany. So,
yes, you just mentioned political will. Maybe I add something to that. So on the multi-level governance, as you know, in the NECP, Germany is kind of a laggard in terms of energy poverty. So we heard today that energy poverty was already mentioned 2009, the gas directive. And there were actions provided, but in Germany, unfortunately, maybe some of you know the Stromsparcheck, which is an excellent instrument, but however, it's kind of very short-termed, right? It's a short-term measure. So we could witness that in the NECP, there is a missing energy poverty definition. There is missing actions. There are missing milestones. This is kind of problematic because this leads also to the, maybe you have seen it, there was no application for a call for technical assistance from Germany, neither in the first nor in the second one. So it's really blank space in the region. So, but we have to dig deep into the German and take a lens to see, okay, where are good positive examples. And one positive example we had in the German event is Nuremberg, who provided a very, very good collaboration between the job center, the Caritas, the energy agency of the region. They provide specialized support, which feeds from the Stromsparcheck, but that only focuses on electricity. In the city of Nuremberg, they focus also on the heating costs by providing energy advice through also awareness campaigns, but also behavioral change. But the efficiency experts go into the buildings, do an audit and take a look. What is this, the building, what kind of energy rating does it have? And then depending on the rating, the welfare support is adjusted for these households, which is a quite unique example and very, very good. So definitely there's some best practices to look out for, but we need to hear the voice and to have more collaborations between the municipalities and the cities. That was clearly mentioned. We had also a guest during the national event from Austria, from the KEA, which just launched in mid-March the National Energy Poverty Observatory. And the cities, we had over like 65, 70 municipalities at the event, and they were all very astonished and really liked that idea. So, and they called for the need for the same in Germany. So, especially considering the Social Climate Fund, I think the voices of the cities and municipalities really need to be heard, because in Germany, and I think in other European countries as well, the cities, the needs were not really, there was little coordination with the cities and the national governments, unfortunately, and the public consultation really needs to happen also for the social climate plans, and to distribute especially the money accordingly to the cities. So this was one of the clear statements from the national event. Thank you.
But at this point, we reach 10, so there are 2 more minutes for any people that want to speak.
Yeah. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah? Just really quick. Under the Concerted Actions Energy Efficiency Directive, we set up an expert study group on the correlation between health and energy poverty. It's, I think, a very interesting report, and we're going to use it in the Netherlands. I'm from the Netherlands, by the way. And we're going to use it to direct to our well, how do you call that, health insurance companies, because in some sort of buildings, I think they need to finance together with the government because they have a benefit as well. And I think that report that we've made is, well, quite interesting to use. That's it.
And in the corner, you added a country, so we are very happy to have this feedback. TISA also reminds me that please consider the Energy Poverty Advisory Hub as a way also to share your knowledge. So we always welcome reports produced under other projects, frameworks, activities. Reach out to us so we can spread the results. I saw a couple of other hands up. You have 1 minute.
Just listening to all countries, something that I wanted to say because of the policies and the need for funding and everything. When it comes to policies and considering what has happened the last 10, 12 years at European level in the South countries, energy crisis, financial crisis, then it was the COVID, now it's the energy crisis, and we don't know what will happen tomorrow, hopefully nothing. If we want to mitigate and address this issue, we need to count that all citizens are vulnerable to energy poverty. It's not a matter just to solve the 10% of the people that they are facing energy poverty, and they are not admitting that they are energy poor. We are stigmatizing people, so we need to find another way to prioritize them and to bring them closer to funding schemes and everything. But the examples of the last decade show us that we need to develop policies, and the countries need to be ready in order to address the vulnerability, which is very, very high currently. So we need to change a little bit the mindset and think, let's say, productive, and imagine and visualize what will happen in the future, and to be prepared not to face again issues like the ones that were 2024, and we have 23, 25 or 30% of people and households not being able to pay the energy bills, or to have cut-offs and not having electricity at all. We are a developed community. We are not an emerging community, I mean, as a Europe as a whole. So I think that we need to phase out of this situation as soon as possible.
Yeah, just a quick, and going even back to our, it's not exactly a logo, but it's our design. At the corner there, maybe there is a better slide to show that. But just as even stitching a couple of comments here, it's this need of connecting knowledge and keep putting the pressure on this, because even progressing not only with app activities or DG Energy activities and the Commission, putting pressure not only on member states, but also pursuing this path towards the local governments. And I'm just highlighting this again because when we are looking to national strategies and the member states, the governments, and the ECPs, they mention the municipalities with this idea they need to take action. Like, yeah, someone needs to take action on the ground, but then diagnosis at the local level is missing. For example, in Portugal, there is a great strategy, but then nothing on diagnosis of the regions, and that's available, for example. So we need to keep putting pressure on this transversal need of high level from the Commission, from DG Energy, the Parliament, till the citizens, but fulfilling all the path, not leaving big jumps, leapfrogging between steps. I think that's important.
Who wants it? Okay. I'm fine to keep going with it, yeah.
Very quickly, I'll just like to join in on the Germany plea on looking into the what are the needs, what domains? Is it social housing that needs more funding because it's a root cause for any side effects or it delivers more co-benefits than something else, mobility or mobility poverty, for example. So we need more fact-checking and evidence-based allocation of funding, and both on thematics but also on the levels. Is it more at the federal level that does the biggest job there, then they need to get the most funding, and vice versa. If it's the local level or the Flanders level, they need to get the best funding, but of course learn from each other, etc. So that's a general principle that could be at some point obligatory or supported with national observatory, and the obligation that it needs to be set in place and needs to be supported and make sure that it's an evidence-based, trusty environment where you can have like these science-based targets, etc. But also
Sorry. I start, so I will be short. Just, I'm missing people on this table. You know that everything is very nice and we enjoy these kind of meetings, but we miss people on the ground to attend people. If we are talking about energy poverty, we can't attend them with the same resources as the others. The subsidies, the grants, all the schemes we are developing are not reaching these people because no one is able to tell them, to explain them. So we can do that as much as we can, it won't work. So we need more people, we need finance, funding for that. And if you look at social services, at least in our place, they are completely saturated. We can't ask them to do that. And we don't have energy municipal services. So at some point, people took the decision to have firemen, to have library, to have social services. Maybe we need to take something like local energy services in place and with funding from, I don't know where for now, because else it's not going to work. So we really need people to talk to these people, else we will keep talking.
No. I'm sorry, I think I cut off some other people beforehand. I'm very sorry about that. But just to add up, I think there's also a very high need for new financial instruments. That was also mentioned quite often. So we heard today the target group of the old widower who is living in big space, for instance, and especially in Germany and also Austria, where we have a lot of multifamily buildings, we know that the uptake of funding there is very, very low. So especially in homeowner associations, you know, it's a very diverse group and they usually also vote against renovations, right? And these households need extra support, and we've been discussing also within the national events, like reversed mortgages from the US examples, for instance, or default guarantees by federal states or the KfW, for instance, could also possibly introduce some new financial instruments, paired also with some new instruments from contracting that we know, especially the facade is not usually done. So households, especially the energy poor, if they take up some funding, then it's the low-hanging fruits, right? But what we want is really deep renovation, and this really needs to be strengthened, I think, with new financial instruments.
Haha, no one has the hand raised. Perfect. Time to move to the closing remarks. So we are a few minutes late, but I think overall it's good, and I'm happy that it boosted the discussion and you satisfied me exchanging opinion.
Yeah, I think we've reached the closing remarks now. I think I'll just give the floor to Alejandro, initially, who's been patiently listening, and I can see that he's been scribbling a lot of things. So let's see what he has to sum up from today.
I'm really thanks a lot, Jeppe. But Dora, would you like to take the floor first, or I'm happy either way. So.
No worries. I think it deserves for you to be the last. No problem. First of all, I was pleased to give up this time for having more discussion. I'm very pleased also that my quote is successful. I have a couple of other ones, but I reserve for the next event, so you are sick to come. They're always about complexity, and I think this is the main point. We always talk about it's difficult, it is a challenge, how analyzing all the different elements, it makes it complicated, and sometimes this morning also it came out, we need the resilience to keep going, to keep trying to find solutions. And I always appreciate to have the chance to hear from the different countries, because I think there is the chance to learn elements, exchange. It's important what we say publicly on live streaming or what we write, but it's even more important when we say what we say during the coffees or everything, and try to push each other to do more, not feeling alone and going forward. And I wanted just to sum this with a thanks for all the people participating and giving their input.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dora. Thanks a lot to everyone. It's been a fantastic day. The morning was great. The afternoon was great. So first of all, thanks a lot to everyone. Wow. I mean, there were so many important things that we said that I'm not trying to recapitulate or anything like that. I'm just giving a few thoughts on... first of all, it's clear that the very important task that we have on our hands here as a team, as people working together, tackling energy poverty, is, first of all, a super important priority, but also something which is complex. And there is a word which came all the time to the conversation, multi-dimensional, multifaceted, multi-something, okay? So, but that, I will come back to that because I think there's good things there. So, but it's really a challenge, and just this kind of exchange of information brings a lot of value to finding the solutions, because we are not there yet. It was mentioned in the conversation. We are far from being at acceptable. I mean, the acceptable rate is 0, but we are even far from other rates. So it's a complex thing with many dimensions. And then today, among many other things, I learned that when things are complex, you need a broad range of solutions. The Ashby's law, or it says Ashby, or what? The law. So, but it's not the, what was the name? It's the Ashby's law. Okay, good. But this is not the only thing I learned today. So for those of you who weren't there in the morning, I have been in this job for a grand total of 25 days. So I have a lot to learn. And today was really a good part of that learning experience, which was also very, very inspiring. One of the very good things. So as I mentioned, for those of you who were in the morning, I mentioned I have been working in the Commission for 27 years. So I've been living in Brussels 27 years, and Brussels is a bubble. We're there, and we do directives, we do Horizon Europe, and we do all these nice things. But these things are so far. These things are important. To be clear, I don't say they aren't. So doing directives, doing regulations, this is important. But none of it matters if it doesn't reach the people who, and Corentin said, the people who are supposed to benefit or to benefit from those things that we do. And so hearing from the experience in the ground is so instructive and so refreshing. We heard from you, Christina, the Nuremberg. So there were many examples, but the one you gave from Nuremberg was just one of the many useful things that I think we have learned today. So exchange of information, that was very, 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 very important. One thing that I take from this morning, you heard Dieter Juhl Jørgensen, you heard Paula Pino. I mean, what you here have been saying there is not a big mismatch between what you think and what the Commission thinks. So I'm hearing things that I like to hear. I heard things about streamlining bureaucracy. I heard things about implementing well what we already have. I heard comments about funding and very good reflections about funding. So this resonates well with us. So the first thing that I can say is that we have noted all that very well, and certainly this is part of the process of the policy making. By the way, we are in a very interesting policy moment now, because we are a few months away from European Parliament elections. Those are very important because all the European Parliament elections matter, but I think in the current context, these ones matter a lot. And then there will be a new commission, and the new commission hopefully will give to fighting energy poverty the same importance as this commission gives. So, voila. And we are already trying to shape work, so the input that you have given us today is really very useful in trying to shape the future policy work, which of course will depend on what our citizens want. So, voila, there will be elections, and they will define that's democracy. They will define the policy course that we want. Maybe because I had written so many things here, but I will go straight to a few points. First of all, the importance of implementation. I think it was Paolo Pino who said it, or I mean, we have a lot. So let's not be, let's not undervalue what we have. We have a lot in our pocket, and we really have to make the best possible use of it, of this. For that, there might be need to provide guidance at European level. There might be need to further work at European level, but certainly the Commission is ready to help member states and other levels of governance, including municipalities, with the implementation. By the way, speaking about support to municipalities, and before I forget, so many of you are aware of our Executive Agency for Climate, Infrastructure and Environment, CINEA. Okay, so have a very important announcement to do, which is that there's going to be a new call for proposals, next week under the LIFE program, with a window for support on energy poverty and on energy communities. So there will be wide information about this. There's going to be an information session on the 25th of April that you can follow, and colleagues in EPA are going to circulate the information to everyone, so keep an eye on that. That's very important. There's so much I would like to say, but I will try to keep it very short. So I try now to wrap up. First of all, well, today's, this afternoon's event was great also because we had the support from political level. We had two important MEPs from different political parties who I think gave rather coherent and supportive messages regarding the work that we do. It was really good to hear from MEP Bushoi how the Parliament is happy that there's been a good cooperation between the European institutions and the different levels of government regarding the management of the crisis, because this is something that we really need to be proud about. What has happened in the last years was very difficult, and Mr. Bushoi has said very clearly, we pull it off. We pull it off, not perfectly. I mean, the situation is extremely difficult still, but what we managed to do together, working in a spirit of solidarity, which is the essence of the EU, wow, I mean, think about 3 years ago, or two and a half years ago. Now, I come to the multi-dimensionality or multifaceted element. So that's obvious. So energy poverty, the challenge that we're tackling, has many, many dimensions. That is really clear from the discussion. The EU is complex and multi-layered as well. I should say that this is not bad. This is democracy. This is how we have constructed the EU. And my personal take is that we have to look at it positively. Of course, yeah, there are 5 layers of government, so that makes it complicated. But let's also see how this can be a positive element to tackle the challenge from different angles and using synergies between a community of 450 million people who, yeah, by definition, to work together, need complex structures because we are not, well, we are the European Union. And that, by the way, is this multifaceted element is what has allowed us to deal with the crisis. Because think about it. What was the crisis? That a country which used to be our major provider of energy then decided to, and I quote President von der Leyen, blackmail us not to give us energy anymore, and so that they could do an armed invasion to a country sitting next. So That was a blackmail using energy, and that was a very specific facet of energy policy. But what was the solution that the EU found? The EU found that if we accelerate the deployment of renewables, if we increase energy efficiency, and if we do other things that we had planned in 30 years, we do them in 5 years, then we are going to tackle that crisis that was created by our former country providing gas. So the fact that this is a multifaceted system somehow helped us in dealing with the energy crisis, so helped us, yeah. So there's nothing good with this crisis, but you see, we managed to increase our renewables deployment, to increase our lack of use of fossil fuels, and so on. So voilà, that's what I meant when I said that multifaceted sometimes can be a good thing, because it allows you to deal with a problem from a different facet. So, yeah, but all in all, the crisis has been bad. So let's be clear. We shouldn't have been there. The multifaceted element of the challenge, so the full multifaceted characteristic of the challenge that we have to tackle has been really present in the conversation. There is a gender dimension. Isabella was referring to it. There is a health dimension. Michael mentioned it. There is intersectionality in general. Gabor mentioned it. And I think, again, this is a challenge, but it's also an opportunity, because by tackling certain energy elements by energy policy, we can address more than energy issues. We can address also other issues. And that, for me, is a very big opportunity that we have to seize, because we don't have a lot of money, we don't have a lot of policy space, so we have to make sure that everything we do really tackles, let's put it like that, several problems at the same time. Then, I'm boring, I'm talking a lot, sorry. Then collaboration. Collaboration has been all over the discussion, okay? Many of you. So, let me share something from a long time ago. A long time ago, I was interacting with people who dealt with civil protection, okay? And I was talking to a person, he was responsible for civil protection, and he told me, Alejandro, an earthquake is always a sad tragedy, okay? And we all agree. But then he told me something, but the second tragedy is if you don't learn and share the experience from the earthquake and you don't use it to prevent that another tragedy happens again. And okay, so that's very sad and not perhaps the best way to put it at it, but the information, the analysis is there, the groundwork is there, and it shouldn't, okay, it is difficult because we are always putting it in the table, that the exchange of information and sharing of best practices, etc., is something that we want to achieve. But I feel that it should be possible. So everything that we can do, EPA, but other activities, to share information, analysis, best practice, and so on, that is something that we should do because it's like not the most difficult part of it. So let's go for it. Also, short-term versus long-term. And here, this is a kind of thing that I have shared with in Brussels, in the Brussels bubble, everything is long-term, 2050, 2030, 20 whatever, fine. And that's right, because we need to set paths and things cannot be sorted. But energy poverty is a problem for people now. So we cannot deal in 30 years with the problem that our fellow citizens have now. So everything which goes into the direction of finding operational solutions and maybe being a little bit modest, so we cannot tackle everything, so we cannot use our space, but maybe let's focus on things which can deliver results. For me, that's important, and I really heard good examples of things which already have results on the ground. That's really very good. For instance, we were talking now, and then we also need to be adaptive. We were hearing a lot now about, for instance, summer energy poverty, which is a new development, but again, it's a new development for now, for the people now. So being able to adapt ourselves to the new challenges and to find solutions now is really very good. The climate, I think it was you, Marta, who mentioned the Commission's climate communication on tackling climate risks. I think this is something that I would recommend all of us to read, because this is in the spirit that there are new challenges that we need to be able to tackle, and they are very much related to the subject of our work. We also talked about non-aligned incentives, the issue of multi-propriety, and how this is something that we need to tackle. And in general, it was underlying there, and I intervened when Corentin made the point on the targets for energy poverty. And in general, I feel, you mentioned it as well, Germany maybe was not so well in terms of implementation of governance regulation and NSCPs. But in general, there is a good tool there. There is a good tool there because, to wrap up with what I said at the beginning, okay, multifaceted, multi-dimension, but the governance and the NSCP is precisely the Shelby's, no, Ashby's. It's the Ashby's tool, because it's supposed to be also a tool of solutions for what is a very complex situation. Now, I said I would shut up for 3 times already, but now I shut up. So, what we have in our hands is very important. I am really very happy that I can count on really such committed people like you. So if I get out, Michael, you said, what do you get from these meetings and what do you tell when you get home? I get a feeling of commitment. So we are all here kind of we want to bring solutions to the table. Speaking of people committed, before I wrap up, I need to thank the very nice team in the European Commission, the most committed people to bring solutions, who really work very hard to make this meeting happen together with the EPA. So I want to thank, I won't try to name everyone in EPA here today, but okay, very good. EPA has all my applause, and of course Jeppe, who managed this and conducted this meeting very brilliantly. So thanks a lot, Jeppe, for the fantastic handling. And then everyone, as I said, I get this feeling that we are committed, that we want to do things. I think that you broke today the Brussels bubble, so the Brussels bubble has a little bit, open for a while, and we managed together to bring the big EU policy thoughts with the reality on the ground. We will take it from there. You can really count on us. And personally, and the team, we hope that we will have many good meetings as the one we had today, but also bilaterally. Well, this is the beginning of a big adventure, so we will be in touch. And with that, I hand over back to you, Jeppe. Nothing else to say. There is a very important thing. There is drink.
You didn't know that, Alejandro. Maybe your wrap-up would have been faster? No. I just want to say that, yes, we will, of course, disseminate